everyone, and welcome to my kitchen. My name is Hannah, and I am a nutrition educator with Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County. Today, I am here for another episode in the series, What Can I Cook With?, where I take ingredient suggestions from community members that they might have sitting in the back of their pantry or just looking for a new way to use an ingredient and show you some of those new ways that you can reuse them. So today's ingredient is 4 oats. So I've got my big container of old-fashioned oats here today. And I know these are a really good standby for breakfast. You've got your whole grain, which helps keep you full throughout the day until you can get to lunch. And the whole grains also help promote your heart health, reduce your risk of diabetes, and reduce your risk of certain cancers. So it's a great way to start your day. But I wanted to show a way that we can make it a little more savory. So something that you could have for dinner, or you could have for a savory dinner. Or a savory breakfast, excuse me. So we will be making a black bean burrito bowl using our oats. And oats you can also use in place of other grains. So if a recipe calls for quinoa or rice and you don't have either of those, you can sub in oats. You would just want to adjust the cooking time and cook them like you would normally cook oats. So to get started with this, I have a little bit of oil in my pot here, and I'm going to start heating it up. And you can probably guess what's going to happen next. And that's going to be, we're going to saute our onion, really caramelize it, get some deeper flavors coming out of it. So we'll get that going on the stove. So also going into our bowl today, we have some black beans. So these you can make from fresh or canned or dried. If they're canned, again, you just want to make sure that you're rinsing them before you use them or choosing a low sodium option. Then instead of using just plain water or milk to cook our oats in, we're actually going to be using some low sodium diced tomatoes. This will give us a really beautiful color, some little bit of extra flavor, and of course we're getting all those good vitamins from a vegetable in there. So fun fact about tomatoes is even though botanically they are considered a fruit, legally they are a vegetable, and the Supreme Court actually ruled on it. It's kind of a interesting thing. So you can be right either way if you say it's a fruit or a vegetable, which is what I like about them. All right, and then I also have some frozen broccoli that I thawed, and that will go on our bowls. And I've got some canned corn that I've rinsed to go on our bowl as well. And I will be slicing up some spinach to kind of serve as a little bit of a base for it. So while our onions are browning, I'm going to go ahead and show you a dip that I like to make to either go on top of your bowl or on the side as a dip for veggies. It's really versatile. You done? So it's going to start with making a taco seasoning. And if you saw my lentil taco recipe, it's going to be the same recipe as that one. So we're going to start out with 1.5 tablespoon of cumin powder. And as I mentioned before in the previous video, since I'm going to be using up this taco seasoning, it's okay if I have maybe a little bit more. It's not going to go to waste. So I'm just going to go ahead and measure it over my container. And then I need 1 tablespoon of my chili powder here. Whatever version of chili powder you have is fine. I know sometimes they have like a hot chili powder or a dark chili powder. Whatever blend you use is fine. I'm just going to stir my onions up a little bit. Keep them browning. And then I have my garlic powder. So I need 1/2 teaspoon of this. And 1/2 teaspoon of my onion powder. And I did double dip, you'll notice, with my 1/2 teaspoon measuring spoon. I use onion powder and garlic powder with most of the same recipes a lot, so if there's any slight contamination, I'm not super worried about the flavors mixing. However, you wouldn't really want to use the same measuring spoon if you were doing like garlic powder and nutmeg, or like a sweeter and a savory spice. That might turn out a little bit funky. So then I also need a half a teaspoon of oregano, and I'm just going to measure that out as 2/4 teaspoons. 1, 2. And I'm going to add in some cayenne pepper to make it a little bit spicy. Do 1/4 teaspoon of that. You could omit the cayenne pepper, or you could sub in some red pepper flakes, which are a little bit less spicy, or just change the amount. Go ahead and give this a good mix. Get it all blended up nice and well. And the base of this dip is going to be some Greek yogurt. I like it because it's a higher protein option. And this one doesn't have any added sugar in it. So go ahead, and I'm going to make about a cup's worth. I've actually been making my own Greek yogurt at home in my slow cooker, which was a surprisingly easy process. It's something you heat it up to a certain temperature to kind of kill any proteins, denature your proteins and kill any maybe like lingering bacteria that might interfere with the culturing. Got 1 cup here. Then you let it cool, and you mix a little bit of yogurt in as kind of a starter. That's going to have all those probiotics in that will kind of kickstart the culturing process. And then you just keep it warm. This, if you want Greek yogurt, I think it's about 8 hours. And then you come out with this. And so it's a whole lot cheaper because you're just paying for milk. You can make your own. And then you can control your sweetness and the thickness and all that good stuff. So now I'm going to add in 2 tablespoons of my taco seasoning, which I think will end up being about the whole thing. Yeah. So I'll just dump it in. If it's too taco-y, I'll add a little bit more yogurt in, balance it out. Just give it a good blend. This is a really great alternative to sour cream because it's got a little more protein in it. You can do a low-fat or a fat-free version. And it's still got that tanginess, which is great. Well, I'm going to give it a little bit of a taste with my taster spoon and see if it needs anything. That's great. I'm going to add just a dash more of my cayenne, give it a little bit more of a kick. And then I have some lime juice here. I'm just going to, I'll probably measure out a half a teaspoon in there. You don't want to put too much in. It'll make it too watery. But just a little bit of that lime flavor. And I'll save the rest of my lime juice to actually go in with my oatmeal. Great. So I've got this mixed up here. I'm going to set this to the side. My onions are starting to brown, and they're quite softer, starting to get translucent. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my other ingredients. I'm going to add in this whole can of diced tomatoes. I would really recommend going the diced tomato route as opposed to like a tomato sauce route. I like having those extra chunks in there, or if you have like whole peeled tomatoes that you want to crush up yourself. I think it adds a nice bit of texture. So we're mixing all those together. If you have diced tomatoes that are like fire roasted and have jalapenos in them, those are also really good. And then I have my oats. So I'm going to use 2 cups of these. Got my half cup measure. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm also going to add in 1 cup of water. So as I mentioned before, I'm using old-fashioned oats. You could also use steel-cut oats. You would probably just need to adjust the water a little bit and the cooking time. So these will take probably about 5 to 10 minutes to get to the texture that I want. If you're using steel-cut oats, you'd need quite a bit longer and more liquid, just because they're a denser oat. You could use instant oats in a pinch. They will get pretty mushy though. So it's just a textural difference. So you can see here, this is about how wet they are. There's a little liquid in the bottom there. And that's good. That's what I want to start out with because I don't want these super watery. If you need to adjust and add a little bit more water later on, you'll have the option to do that. I'm going to also add in my black beans. If you're not a fan of black beans, you could add in pinto beans or white beans, whatever beans you all are a fan of. But they're a great source of protein. They're going to have a lot of fiber in them. And they count as a protein food and a vegetable. So you're getting all those good vitamins and minerals that you would expect from a vegetable. So now this is kind of what it looks like. And I'm just going to let it cook. Let the oats start to absorb all my liquids. I have it on about medium-low temperature. And I'm going to add some spices into there now as well. I'm going to have my ground cumin again. I'm going to add 1 tablespoon. Or the rest of mine. And then I'm going to add a little bit more cayenne too, just because I like it a little bit spicy. Give it a little bit of a kick. There we go. But again, that's optional. If your family doesn't like spice or you don't like spice, you can leave it out and you can add it to the individual bowls. You can mix it up really well so that the spices distribute. If you wanted to, you could add taco seasoning right into here, especially if you weren't making your dip on the side. You could add the taco seasoning into this mix, or you can really play around with the flavors. So I went with kind of a taco theme today because it's Taco Tuesday here, but you could change this up however you want. You know, if you're feeling maybe more Mediterranean flavors, you could put some lemon juice in there, maybe some Italian herbs, so basil, oregano, top it with olives. It's really versatile depending on whatever you have in your pantry and your fridge. So while that cooks for a little bit, I'm just going to slice up some spinach as my base. Just a couple handfuls. I can always cut up more. I like to put spinach at the bottom of my burrito bowls because then when I put the hot, in this case, it's going to be our bean, tomato, oats mixture, or if you are making it with ground meat, whatever you put on top of it is going to help the spinach wilt down a little bit, but it's not going to kind of get that overcooked feeling that it sometimes can get if you put it into your pot right away. This also helps maximize your body's ability to use the iron and the vitamin C in here. It's about confetti size. I like my spinach pieces a little bit smaller. I think it's easier to eat and you don't kind of have this large piece of spinach dripping out of your mouth as you're trying to enjoy your burrito bowl. I should also mention I am monitoring the chat right now, so if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in there, or if you have suggestions for ingredients you want to see cooked with in future classes, I'd be happy to take them in there. Okay, so here's my spinach. Just going to start building a bowl right here. Probably put a handful or so. If you're doing this with other folks, you can kind of put all of your different ingredients into bowls and kind of make a taco bar situation where everyone can make their own and customize them a little bit. So I can see over here, the liquid is evaporating. My oats do feel softer and a little more mushy, which is great. So the rest of my toppings I'm going to save to put on top of it. As I mentioned before, I have some corn, I have some broccoli, I have the dip I made, and I have some lime juice to sprinkle on it. I'll also end up putting some green onions on there. See, I have my little jar that's been growing in the windowsill. This is a fun tip. I feel like green onions always come in packs of like 5 to 10 green onions, and I only need like one at a time. So after you use them, you can put them in a glass full of water and let them grow. And you can see they've actually started sprouting roots, and they'll grow for a bit of time. You just want to make sure that before you use it, you give it a good rinse. Because if it's been sitting on your windowsill or something like that, you might be getting, dust and other particulates. So that's a fun tip to grow your own green onions. And if you have kids in your household, it's kind of a fun project for them to watch because they really do grow quite fast and get taller. Okay, so I've got a little bit just for a garnish here. This is bubbling over here. Most of the liquid is gone. So I'm going to give it a taste with one of my tasting spoons just to see if it's the consistency that I like. I don't want my oats too mushy, but maybe if you want a softer texture, you can keep cooking it a little bit longer. Yep. All right. That's exactly the texture I want. So you can kind of see it right here. If you've ever made beans and rice before, it looks actually pretty similar to that. I'm actually going to sprinkle a little bit more cayenne on there. I don't really think it's kicky enough. You can also use this time to adjust any other spices you want. So I might add in a little bit of garlic powder as well. Just 1/4 teaspoon. But this is a chance where you can really play around with it a little bit more too and let the heat release all the flavors. I've got that blended together. Go ahead and add it to my bowl. If you're having this for breakfast and you're looking for maybe a little bit more protein, you could add an egg on here. Lots of different ways you can customize it. Put some broccoli on. I think if you had like salsa would be good, put on here as well. Some baked sweet potatoes, if you have like roasted sweet potato cubes. I've got my corn. If you really want to go all out, you could get some fresh corn and grill it. Right, and then I'm going to add a little bit of this Greek yogurt that I made for a little bit of extra flavor. But again, this is great for just as a dipping sauce. It's a good accompaniment to other taco night dishes you might have. And I've got my green onions on there. So here you are. So this was a savory oatmeal bowl with black beans and tomatoes. If you have any suggestions for ingredients you want to see me cook with in the future, please feel free to leave them as a comment. If you watch this video all the way through, oh man, I'm having a hard time talking tonight. If you watch this video all the way through, if you don't mind filling out the Qualtrics survey that's down in the description box, this just helps us ensure that we are offering programming that meets the needs of our community. So I really appreciate that. You can also check out other videos we have and other events we have going on constantly over at the Cornell Cooperative Extension of Jefferson County Facebook page. We have cooking classes, live series, Tomorrow, my coworker April and I will be talking all about farmers markets and answering questions that anyone may have. So go ahead and check it out over there, and we hope to see you at some future classes. Have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday.